February 25th, 2021 meeting of the Bastrop City Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Will you please call the roll?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Debbie Moore.
Here.
Glenn Johnson.
Here.
Cynthia Meyer.
Here.
Matt Lassen.
Here.
Cheryl Lee.
Here.
Greg Sherry.
Here.
Ishmael Harris.
Here.
Pablo Serna.
Here.
Carrie Kaler.
Here. We have a full house tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. We have citizen comments. Do we have anyone signed up for citizen comment?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
All righty, then we'll skip on down to item 3. I don't see, do we have anything? 3A is consider action to approve meeting minutes from the January 28th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at them? Are there any changes, additions, corrections, or deletions?
Madam Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved.
Move to
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item 3B, consider action to approve the Colony Mud 1C, Section 4, preliminary plat being 14.988 acres out of the Jose Manuel Bang Survey, abstract number 5, located west of FM 969 within the statutory extraterritorial jurisdiction of Bastrop, Texas, as shown in Exhibit A. Ms. Bills.
Good evening. So yes, this first item up is a preliminary plat in the Colony Mud, and this is in Section 1C. We did several plats in this section in the last meeting, and I'm trying to give a little more context of where we are in the development. I included some exhibits of their entire development in your packet. So in this location map, you'll see this is the entire colony development, and this shows their full 4,300, and this is dwelling unit, and those are actually wastewater terms, dwelling unit equivalents. It may be less than that at the end of the day of actual units. But this plat is in that roughly that red box area in Section 1C. So that whole area right in there is 1C. The one where you see the lots already represented right in there are 1B, and then in front of that is 1A. So going this way, they get bigger, and then at the very top end, which also intersects 969, that'll be 1G when that comes in, and that actually will probably start coming in sometime this year. So they're kind of start at the roads and work their way in. So, and then you can see Sam Houston is running down the middle of that arm there. To give you more specific, and this is south of Sam Houston, I got the wrong. This is 1C specifically. This is the different section breakdown. The developer has them broken down into these specific neighborhood groups for their own, I think, product types, sales purposes, and that's how they get constructed, the public improvements for each one of these sections. But you'll see at the last meeting, we have brought you MUD 1C Section 2. And there were some questions about how it connected, that it only had one connection back to Sam Houston, but it does have these two connections that now connect into Section 4, which does connect back to Sam Houston right there as well. So that entire kind of little section right there connects back to Sam Houston in two different places. So this section, you'll see that's the lot layout. That's a little less than 15 acres. It's 44 units that are approximately 60 foot wide. They'll have the 3 residential streets that connect back to Sam Houston and to Section 2. They also have 2 drainage landscape utility easements in this section. The DRC met on January 28th and found the plat to be administratively complete. It met all of our fire code platting requirements, B3 code requirements, and any additional requirements in their consent agreement. So it met all of those standards, and they previously had the preliminary drainage plan and infrastructure plan approved by the city engineer. Any questions on this item?
I have a question just in general. So can you explain to me, because I think, been talking about the colony mud since I got on planning and zoning. So I assumed that the colony was city. But I have a friend that lives out there, and he told me he was county. So so then I started like researching it, trying to figure out, why are we talking about the colony all the time? Can you explain to me how much of the colony is city, is part of it city, part of it county? Why, what's, where,
So
what am I missing?
all of the colony is in the ETJ. Part of it is in our statutory, our 1 mile ETJ, and the other half of it approximately is in the voluntary area A of the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So the split kind of happens right around here. So anything this direction is in our statutory, and anything this direction is in the voluntary area A. So why we review this is several reasons. So in the ETJ, all of the ETJ, even area B, if someone wants to do a special district, they have to come to the city to get permission. So that's a municipal utility district, public improvement districts, water control and improvement districts, all of those can, some of those have to come to the city for approval. PIDs can also be approved by the county. But especially utility districts, if they're in an ETJ of a city, the city has the ability to say no, or at least be a part of the creation of the agreement. So in this case, the colony actually did. There is a mechanism that MUDs can go to the state and get created, but they still have to come back to the city and work out what's called a consent agreement. So we have a consent agreement that's been amended now 4 times as the development has grown and changed over time. And that agreement is what gives them their ability to be a municipal utility district, and they get to, so they're their own for the kind of little tiny government in the instances of water and wastewater. So so when we were talking about all the different things, going on the last week, their provider is the colony MUD for their water out there. That's who they would call if they were having issues. So does that kind of explain it?
They're kind of like their own little suburb.
Yes.
Using city facilities.
Well, so they're in the county. They are county residents, but anything going on in the MUD, it has to have city approval.
It has
so.
to have city approval. Got it. Okay.
So we don't actually issue building permits out there, but we do all the subdivision. We review their public amenities. It's the idea that this is close enough that should the city grow that direction, that someday it may be annexed into the city limits. And there are terms in their consent agreement that, after debt is paid off, that the city could annex it. Yeah.
Anything else?
I have maybe a comment. I appreciate the map because it helps pull all these separate items we've been considering over the last several months. Thinking about it, the Section 2 and Section 4, the first things that will be built will probably be the roads and the underground utilities, right? So the roads will be there when the people move in.
Yes.
That will allow double access to get out of the subdivision, out of the section, or
Yes.
out of the. Okay.
Yeah, all of these sections, they're actually close to starting. They want to get what's called pre-construction meetings going on them to start the actual construction of the utilities. So after the preliminary plat stage, they get their public improvement plans done, then they go to bid, start constructing, and there's 2 methods. They either have to give fiscal guarantee that they're going to build all the infrastructure to ensure it gets done, and they can go record their plat, or they build everything, the city inspects it, makes sure it's good, and then they could go record their plat. So, but same goes with the fiscal guarantee. We don't release it until we've made sure it meets the standards, and we've given the approval for the lots to start being occupied.
Well, this establishes what you told me before, that Section 4 will take care of Section 2 for an access, and vice versa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Would you please call the roll?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Carrie Kaler,
Aye.
Glenn Johnson,
Yes.
Debbie Moore,
Yes.
Cynthia Meyer,
yes,
Matt Lassen,
Yes.
Cheryl Lee,
Yes.
Greg Sherry,
Yes.
Ishmael Harris,
Yes.
Pablo Cerna.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Did the puppy vote too?
Apparently.
Okay, thank you very much. Passes unanimously. Item 3C, consider action to recommend approval with conditions of the Bastrop Grove Neighborhood Regulating Plan located 33.6 acres of the Nancy Blakey Survey, Abstract 98. I understand that this item has been pulled from the agenda.
Yes, the applicant requested to pull their consideration of this item.
Okay. Item number 4, workshop. Item 4A, discussion and provide feedback on the focus to future updates on the Comprehensive Plan Executive Summary, Chapter 1, Planning Context and Vision, Chapter 2, Community Growth, and Chapter 3, Public Facilities.
Hey, Colin, can you flip over to my first PDF? There you go. So, just to give you a quick tour, so I've kind of covered the first 4 sections of the comp plan. Some of it is background. So, just to give you kind of a quick introduction to the plan. The first section is the executive summary, and this is if for the person who doesn't want to read all 289 pages or however exactly many pages they are.
A lot.
They can get the gist of what the city is all about in our comprehensive plan. So this section, with our update, I will imagine we're going to add a section up clarifying our update to the plan with this executive summary. But otherwise, it's not going to change a great deal because this gives the background of how we got to this comprehensive plan. So, any specific questions on the executive summary?
Does anyone have any questions on the summary? I don't see any.
And then the
Okay,
next
let's go.
section.
Yeah, okay.
Is the planning context and vision. So this gives the background of setting up this comprehensive plan on what was the purpose? Why were we doing a 2036 plan? Why were we looking forward to 2036? Kind of gives the history of previous comprehensive plans in the city. And it also lays out how the plan is organized. So you can read this first section. You can see all of our different sections. The next chapter is our growth, annexation, and infrastructure. And it gives you the rundown. We did a truly comprehensive plan. Some cities, with the way they do their comprehensive plan, is they kind of have a visioning document, and then they have different plans that are done over different times, which also, it works. It's sometimes a little bit more dynamic because you can update each individual plan a little bit more frequently. But this truly was a comprehensive plan. We looked at the different aspects of the city, the public facilities, housing and neighborhoods, land uses, all at the same time, which there's, I think, some value to being able to look at the city comprehensively through the different plans. We still do have additional plans that feed into the comprehensive plan. We did, actually, around the same time, a new updated Parks Master Plan. We also did the Transportation Master Plan along with the comprehensive plan. So those provide even more detail and study that feed into this plan. So going forward, I think there will be some additional plans we start to look at to drill down to get maybe a little bit more specific that tie back to the main goals of the comprehensive plan. Any questions on this section? There's definitely some demographics and statistics in here that'll just need to be updated with the 2020 census numbers coming out. So those are numbers that we'll add to, if the plan is to start building out our budget request for next year and planning for how much we need to allot for a consultant to help us pull these numbers and pull this plan together. So we definitely know that these tables will need to be updated with recent data.
it was understood all along that since this is a living, breathing document, that things were going to be changing.
Yeah.
And that's why we review it on a regular basis to make sure that we are living within the context and doing what the folks that spent a lot of hours putting this together wanted to see happen in the city.
Yep.
So I'm glad we're doing this.
Yes.
One statistic that kind of amazed me is that the various estimates of the population growth of the city range from, I think, 28%, 38% to 208%. So, I mean, we get a little bit more data, and we may be closer to the second number than the first. I don't
Yes, yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Also, given the other statistics you referenced as to the number of, the amount of construction that has been approved through your department, so.
Yeah, I will say, I think since the adoption of this plan, I think the city has started to take a more proactive approach to our, starting to gather our own statistics and demographics of our current activities, and so that'll be able to help us inform each of these sections on updating. And be able to maybe do that on a slightly more dynamic basis than every 5 years. So there was a lot of work and a lot of public input that went into determining the values and the vision of this plan. And that would be a kind of different process to restart. Again, this is our 5-year update. It's not a revisioning of the plan. So I wouldn't imagine this section's going to change a great deal. Our vision, I think, is still in line with what was determined in 2016. We're still focused on, supporting the citizens of Bastrop, making sure we're managing growth properly, making sure we have our utilities set up to support the growth, which are all the different sections of the comp plan that we can look at. Any questions about Chapter 1? Or thoughts, comments?
We've got new data on, we've planned for everything except a 100-year freeze. And based on my conversations with people that live around us, including the big city to the east, to the west, we did fantastically well, it seems to me. I just expect the antique water system and electrical system would not work, and it worked very well compared to the city of Austin and others. So congratulations to those that worked on all through that storm.
Yes, and I think some of that we've been having just internally conversations in the staff about, we recently read a book about Start With Why, making sure from the top down, the entire organization knows why we're doing what we're doing, how you get that done, and what results from that. And I think we show that from the work that our utilities and our public works provide on a daily basis in Bastrop. And I think that's in line with our mission statement and vision statement in the comp plan.
I had a question. On the permit section 44, where you show this great increase of permit activity, is there do we know time-wise how we're doing and comparatively?
Which page are you on, sorry?
44.
224?
44. I'm sorry, might be looking at something ahead of time. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you in chapter 2 already?
Yeah, I'm looking at the other report, sorry.
Come on. Oh, you're looking at the quarterly report?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get that, we have that on the agenda for later, right now, comp
Okay.
plan. So. Our quarterly report will definitely help us as we update our comp plan, however. Any question on chapter 1? I figure we'll have more discussion when we get into the meat of the plan. So.
Yes.
So this is a section from a planning perspective that I am always interested in, is the community growth and how do we manage community growth. So you can see here we were still looking at the 2011 annexations. Some of those some of that's in the city now. That was done in the 2000, that was planned for. A lot of those green areas are still in what we call annexation agreement areas, that as long as they stay ag exempt, they don't they stay out of the city limits, but the minute they decide to develop, those are areas that do annex into the city. So we do still have areas that are outside the city limits that will annex in upon development. So we do have growth potential there, even with some of our annexation abilities curtailed by the state.
Where are those areas? Because that's one of my main concerns too. I feel like our city there is no more room to put anything within the city. So what does that look like in terms of growth and providing more amenities or new amenities within the city bounds within that area? Because because with the toad habitat on one hand, and then we're so saturated on the other hand, I'm still amazed that the Piney Creek development is there, having grown up and seen a field all my life. It's weird to see houses back there, but it makes sense. But where is that other growth possibility within the limits?
So I will say that the toad habitat is something that is a limiting factor, so that has driven us to look towards the west side of town. Also, as you know, Austin continues to build out and developments coming towards the 130 corridor, that's the natural area that we'll look at. The other thing that drives us looking west of town is where our wastewater CCN is. And it's the wastewater CCN refers to our area that we're able to, we're the wastewater provider for that area. So our wastewater CCN is much bigger than our actual water CCN and goes to the west. So all of these properties that you see here are in our wastewater CCN. And so where we are right now is, my hand is on Burleson Crossing. That's 969. So right up here is where the colony is. So the colony is very close to the city limits, honestly. So in all this area will be future city limits. So that's why it's one of our growth focus areas. The new communities that we talked about back in December is this tract right to the north of that, also in our wastewater CCN. So that's why these developments are coming and talking to the city, is because wastewater capacity is something that makes land a lot more valuable to develop. They can build denser. When you're in the county, you end up with a lot of 1 acre lots because you got to have septic systems. So wastewater definitely drives your development in town.
Where you're going to develop.
Yep, and so that's why, our wastewater CCN continues to go west from town, so that's where we'll be looking. And with other agreements, that's aqua water territory, but we have some ability to work out agreements with them to also be the water provider in some of those areas as well. So
What about north, like Old McDade Road, Piney, out in that area? No.
they're definitely, so the other area that hasn't been talked about in several years, but definitely is a potential growth area to the north, is Excess Ranch. That's one that's been not in progress for a little while, but it's still there. It also has the ability to be a municipal utility district. It has never started development, so it hasn't pulled any debt down yet. So that's an area that, honestly, I think the limits of that development are the same size as the city. So that's an area that, should that developer come back in and they want to change the agreement, they'll have to come back to the city to talk about that agreement. So that's definitely a growth area to the north, that direction. And then, but I will say, people have to voluntarily annex in all those areas to the north. We, with the state legislature the last session, it took away the city's ability to involuntarily annex, or greatly hindered it. You can do it, there's a lot of hoops to jump through now. So people would have to want to annex in. We have to do it in a contiguous manner. You can't annex something that the city doesn't touch already. So north has not been an area we've looked at as much outside of Excess Ranch. And then same with the toad habitat, because there's a lot of limiting factors and the topography gets more challenging for utilities that direction, we haven't studied that area.
And that's
for growth.
mostly east.
East, yeah, east of 95. So, yeah, because the toad habitat restrictions not only apply to private developers, but also the city. We're bound by the same rules, so,
Yeah.
for our infrastructure that goes in. So the growth management methods are kind of our context. When we did the comprehensive plan, it was a focused on, and you focus on the area that's most directly contiguous to the city. It was focused on the 1 mile statutory ETJ. It didn't look as closely at the the voluntary ETJ, which is that large area to the west of the city. Currently, we have it divided into 2 sections, Area A that the city manages and Area B that the county manages. I think with our, increasing focus on water quality, flood management, I think we're looking at Area A and bringing that into our growth management context and looking in that area is something we should be doing. That encompasses the 969 corridor. It encompasses the river, which is where all the drainage is going to come and hit us after the development happens. So I think those are areas that we need to be looking at, focusing on more in the comprehensive plan. Some of the other things that it talks pretty extensively about using toolbox for, actually let me see if I can get to. So what, I think that I can't get to there. So throughout the plan, there we go. There's specific goals, objectives, and then activities. And I was going through all of the goals for sections 2 and 3. A lot of them are ones, there's a few maybe that we finished the goals. Most of them are in process. A few we haven't started yet. I think what we'll want to look at more closely is the specific activities. A lot of those, as we were looking through, especially the growth management, looking at, it talks about, managing growth with our wastewater treatment, our water treatment. And these are all things that we've made a lot of strides on in the last 5 years. So we'll definitely be looking at how that affects the activities in this. Is there any specific goals, objectives that jump out at y'all that you think we need, that's off base, that's still very relevant or not relevant to our discussion? Going through them, all of them seem still relevant in our, as we move forward. It seems the activities are what needs to be updated. So.
Carrie, you have a question?
I was just going to comment that it seems like the kind of effluent use seems like a really relevant and more relevant, we got a good,
Yes.
taste of what could happen, if we had a water shortage. So that seems like pretty low-hanging fruit for.
Yeah, and that's something that with the new, Trey can speak more to it when we get to kind of delving into these details more. But that's definitely something that we're keeping in mind as we build the new plan to make sure we have that ability to expand to those areas.
I have a question. One of the goals is to engage in regional and local planning initiatives. I know that seemed like that was a very controversial topic 3 or 4 years ago because the LCI wanted access through city, an easement through the city. Is that ongoing, or is that still a goal that is being considered?
I would have to. We'll have to do more research on that one.
Okay.
That's probably, I think, a little bit before my time. So,
Okay.
on the details of what happened there. So, But it definitely with this, regional water planning efforts that last week, kind of proved how disconnected we are and how it is a little every man for himself on water around the county. So,
And has
state,
the,
yeah.
has the lawsuit that was affecting a water acquisition by the city been resolved satisfactorily?
Believe so, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Okay.
And I think you might have answered this the last time we were here, or the last time we talked about this. Are there plans to re-engage the community on where the community stands on some things? Like I was reading this, this in chapter 1, satisfaction with city services, and a lot of chapter 1 was focused on things that people in the community thought were important or not, or less important than others. And I think that just in looking at the list, I would be interested to know if some of these things are still important to the community and how important. Like, because I kind of went through and did, yep, we're doing that, we're working on that, checklist X, whatever I thought might still need, to be looked at. But a lot of what was set out to do, the city's doing it. I mean, all the way down from police protection, parks, fire protection, trash, the water, storm drainage. A lot of it is what you guys have been working on since this was probably created, which is impressive. But I also saw a couple of things on here that probably are still important to people in the community. So are there plans to somehow still engage the community?
I think that's what we're deciding here is like what we want to recommend to council to add to the list to engage a consultant to help us do. So
I think it would be good to, a lot of what's on here already, kind of test the waters again and get the community's take on how well we're meeting, how well they think we're meeting some of the stuff that was already outlined. Because like you said earlier, I think we're on task for what was put in place for the comprehensive plan, but it's always good to revisit with the people that it matters to most importantly to make sure we're following what they would like to
do
see.
some comprehensive plan public surveying, maybe public outreach to get some feedback.
Yeah.
We may need to beat away people that want to move to Bastrop. Conversations I've had, I was almost embarrassed to reveal how easy it was to live in Bastrop and still have water and electricity compared to people that live west of us. And that may be an added incentive for people to try to find a house somewhere where they can get water and electricity whenever and wherever.
Yeah. But I think that does underscore the importance of comprehensive plans and the work that the city has been doing over the last 5-10 years to make sure that we're addressing growth appropriately and in an efficient manner that is sustainable. Like those are all of our key points that we're trying to implement with the B3 code. So I think the comp plan is still underlining those main goals and objectives. So you look thoughtful, Pablo. Do you have?
You're leaning forward. Are you asking a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
On page 225, it talks about the wastewater treatment plant doesn't have a backup generator. I don't see that listed as a goal anywhere, or has that already been put in place, or what?
The new one will, the new plant. So we're, I think, breaking ground very soon on the new wastewater treatment plant, and that once that comes online, eventually the old wastewater treatment plant will be decommissioned. So the new plant definitely will have all of those safeguards.
Okay.
Anything else?
So anything specific you guys want to look at in the community growth section as we move forward?
The only other thing that I want to make sure stays in the minds of council and planning and zoning, and is opportunities that close that generational gap that I keep talking about. I just feel like, you know, we know that we have to kind of solicit for that, but I think that we should have a vision of how to bring people in that aren't either over 60 or under 30. There's a whole group of people in there that I think go to Houston or go to Austin or go to Dallas because what they're looking for is not here. I used to tell people all the time, I just come here to sleep. I come here and I stay here now more often now since I've been more involved in what's going on in the community, but I think there's an opportunity there, as well as opportunities for that benefit child advocacy. I think that we need to place a little bit more focus on that, to me, because we have a lot of children who are caught up in these generational, what I call generational curses, and they don't have the support that they need. And we have a couple of advocacy avenues here, and I'd like to see us place more focus on that in terms of education and support, things of those nature.
I couldn't agree with you more, but I'm not sure what role P&C is going to play in community advocacy for.
Well,
in that
it's
end.
more of the educational piece. So in chapter 2, it talks about investments in
Oh, okay.
education.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's some, you know, kind of in our housing and neighborhood section, some of that also I think will influence those patterns. So, yeah, there's sometimes a limit to what cities can do, but we can definitely encourage those items through the comp plan and create those partnership opportunities. So.
You know, some of the things I think staff can handle, some of the things that we're going to want to have some conversations about. So,
yeah, these first several sections are probably ones that are going to have a lot of staff input into, because they are the update of our facilities. Definitely water, wastewater, and public works has done a lot in the last few years to accomplish the comprehensive plan. So they will be updating their providing input as we update the goals and objectives. But if there's anything specific that you think that we've not looked at, like that we've not covered or that we are off base on in the growth section.
It's a goal, but I'm not sure about the installation of filtering systems and periodic flushing of the lines to improve the water quality.
And that's something I think that's actually addressed in our new water plant. So,
Okay.
so we're building a new wastewater plant that's starting first, or wastewater and then a water plant, and that's something that,
That's it, okay.
well, that's actually something that will be addressed. So. And that's also, that actually does feed back into our building Bastrop, and B3 codes is one of the things we wanted was, the complete blocks. And that by having complete blocks and looped water system, that keeps the lines from getting sedentary and getting that buildup, so you don't have to flush them as often because the water is always moving and going around. You don't have those dead ends and cul-de-sacs. So that was actually one of the things we were looking at with the B3 codes that was going to make the city more fiscally sustainable was those complete building patterns.
So there was quite a few things in here that I would like an update on, and I think I'll just email them
Yeah.
to you because I literally finished reading chapter 3. You threw that in the email at the last minute. So I'm gonna email you probably I would just like some updates on some of the things that I saw in here on where we are on that.
Okay.
Jennifer? With the wastewater plant, like what are the plans to do with the sludge?
I do not get in that level of water plant discussion or wastewater plant discussion. So.
Okay.
So hold off. There you go. Hauled off to a certified landfill.
Or Hornsby? Sir? Will it be to Hornsby or Austin somewhere? Okay.
Planners don't get into that level of plant management. So then if we're good with the growth section, I did kind of throw this in last second, was the public facilities section of the code. And this is an interesting one that I will say a lot of cities kind of skip over the public facilities section. They just kind of leave it, to handle internally. But this, is something that I think we be focused on, make sure we have appropriate staffing levels and make sure we have appropriate facilities in the city. So the public facilities section looks at the organization, how we're going to budget and make a plan for the future organizationally. It looks at keeping good inventories of all of our facilities and doing reviews and plans. We've talked a lot lately. I think that next year may be the year of plans, coming up with, next steps for the city. So I think this is a section that we will be, staff will be looking at fairly heavily to make sure it's updated with the correct numbers for staffing and facilities. So obviously in the last 2 years, we've expanded City Hall. We're currently building sleeping quarters in Fire Station number 1. We brought on a lot more full-time staff for the fire department. So we have been building out those different areas of the city, and we need to make sure that we update that section.
It occurred to me that during the freeze situation, was there any issues or downside to the separation of the electric company from the water company from headquarters? I mean, I was just wondering if it would be more efficient if the administrators of those departments were also in direct communication with the mayor and the council.
I will say now, especially that we've really embraced the digital age. I will say, from my own personal experience with my cell phone, we were in constant communication. I think one day I had about 500 texts. Even though some of our facilities may be separate, I think we've set up a very good infrastructure to make sure that everyone's in constant communication. The city did use the Emergency Shelter Senior Center as kind of a headquarters for the public works and utility guys to sleep in, the ones that couldn't get home and that needed to be on call. So I think we adequately planned for that and were able to manage that well. So, and yeah, we had daily Zoom meetings. So.
The City of Bastrop staff rose to the occasion. A lot of folks didn't go home for quite a while, not necessarily because they couldn't get home, but because they were on call, they were on duty. Bastrop Power and Light, Curtis Irvin, give him a crown. And our water folks did a great job, fixed the break quickly. So they took a lot of coordination and communication to do that. So I feel like we're in great hands.
Yeah, I concur with that. I felt guilty. Because I had electricity and water all week, and then the one night that it kind of rolled, I was a little irritated because the Real Housewives was on and it was not recording, but I was highly impressed with the communication level online and the responses. I mean, the city was on it. The city of Bastrop was on it. I couldn't complain compared to others. My little 6 hours of rollouts was nothing compared to what my friends in Austin, still this week, we're still waiting on electricity. So very impressive work for Bastrop.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your hard work and dedication.
I was working remotely from my warm, toasty apartment. Well, actually, I lost heat at one point in Austin, but. So yeah, public facilities, if anyone has any feedback, I know we're looking at, one of the things that was called out in this was a partnership with the YMCA. Obviously, that's something that is no longer in the works, but we're looking at other options. So I think that as we move forward, there'll be additional plans and studies that look at our parks and our recreation levels and where that could go in the future. And we will update that section accordingly, so. Is there any,
What section deals with the convention center?
that would be this public facility.
Public facilities? I didn't see any goals for the convention center.
No, I read something about it.
I did notice the quarterly report that and of course, it's been an unusual quarter, and unusual year, but I didn't see any goals on the convention center if they're neat.
I don't know that there's any specific goals that were written into the plan for it. It is a city facility that definitely gets, thrown in the mix when we're planning events, so.
At one time, talk about putting a hotel or making it part of a hotel or something, or?
There's been discussions over the years about doing a smaller kind of hotel in the downtown region somewhere, but there's no active plans at this point.
In terms of the parks and the comprehensive plan itself, is the comprehensive plan just more focused on establishing more parks, or like pocket parks, or actually the development itself of parks?
So there is a parks section in the plan, and then there is actually a separate parks master plan that looks at, so the parks master plan does drill down into, kind of that inventory of how many benches, how many, playscapes do we have? And there are definitely some national standards on, kind of what those ratios should be. So that plan looks at that. And but in general, yeah, the park section will look at, what our focus is. I will say Bastrop has a lot of regional parks, and so our focus probably should be on more smaller scale parks that are walkable, which was one of the goals of the B3 codes, was the civic space and making sure people had accessibility to those areas. So that's something, yeah, we'll get to when we get to the park section. So while they're city facilities, they're more specific, so. Any?
One, on the energy efficiency, like, I know there's lead in here. What are we doing in terms of encouraging development along that, and how are we going to track that?
So I will say, I've studied LEED in the past, and while it's still something that developments aspire to, I will say with the newest building codes, there's been a lot more focus on energy efficiency. And so by adopting the 2018 codes, that we adopted the new energy codes, which do have a lot more requirements in general. So I think for city facilities, but for the whole city, we've been adopting higher standards of energy efficiency standards that have been previous. I don't know that we've looked at going beyond that at this point. So, and that's something we'll want to look at in the code about, because I did see, or not the code, the comp plan, there were specific kind of energy efficiency requirements, but I will say 5 years ago, the codes were probably not where they are today. So that's something we'll want to look at.
Do you think LEED still needs to be mentioned in this report?
Maybe. It's something I think I'd want to do some more research on.
And just for everyone, that LEED is a rating system, and not unlike getting a nutrition label, except it's a rating system for buildings or for developments. And, there's LEED for neighborhood development, LEED for homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I don't want to tie put all our eggs in that basket. I think maybe mentioning something more general, like a baseline, or 20% above baseline, or like you said, just something more along the lines of energy code. I think and I'm not sure, but have we adopted the International Energy Code as
Yes,
well?
we did. Yeah.
I think that would be sufficient, I would think.
Yeah.
It's
By updating to the 2018s, that was one of them that I think builders don't like having to come up to. It does require some additional steps, but it is more efficient in the long run for homeowners and business owners as well, so. And I do have my lead accredited professional, so, but it's the older model of accreditation, so.
Is there anything else?
Any other feedback from that for now? So the next chapter you'll be diving into is chapter 4, which is housing and neighborhoods, where we started kind of kicking that off last time. I think there's this, in my previous life, I used to be very involved in housing plans. So this is where I like to talk. Yeah. And I think that's one of our goals of the B3 code was creating neighborhoods, not development, not subdivisions, but neighborhoods. So I think looking at that section and kind of measuring where we're at with the new B3 codes will be a good exercise. So, any other questions on the comp plan for tonight? And as you continue to read through and think about what we talked about, if you have questions on where we're at on some of these or what a specific goal or objective or activity level meant, those of us that live in this know what we're talking about. Feel free to drop me an email and we can talk about it.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on now to updates. 5A, we handed out the Bastrop policies and procedures manual.
And so I'll probably just go over some brief highlights of that at the next meeting, but the city council reviews and updates that yearly, and this is what all of our boards and commissions and city council members follow, so.
5B, update of development statistics and the council quarterly report.
Yes, so at the last meeting, I think y'all were looking for data and some activity level indicators of what the planning department's been working on. And so this, we were actively working on this when you asked for that. So we thought we'd provide this and see if this is what, this kind of data is what you guys were looking for. So the city manager and the new assistant city manager, Gleason, worked to put this together, come up with measures that are meaningful, that provide timely data, and we'll do this every quarter. We'll be updating this information. So are there any, so you had some question, Pablo? Can you throw up, Colin, can you throw up this other PowerPoint, or the other PDF? There you go. So that's our very colorful first quarterly report. So do you have a question on a specific page?
On the permits. And it's
Page 44?
40, yes.
Really
Sorry, I jumped the gun there.
No, you're fine.
I think it's pretty telling statistic there. You've just gotten a lot of house permits, new homes, and
I lost my page. There you go. Nope, that's not it. Somehow 44.
and I really
no, it's
just
not.
skipped right to the permit section because it's something that people ask me all the time. How long does it take to get a permit?
I'm never getting that page apparently. There we go. Development statistics. That
So
table.
this definitely shows a lot in the volume in terms of the amount of, I guess that's total construction dollars on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And then the time frame here. So we've seen a great increase of permit activity. Is there a way to answer that question? Some people say, how long does it take to get permits? What should we be advising them?
So our standard answer right now is that given that the plans are complete when they're submitted, you'll get comments in 2 weeks, so 14 days. I will say sometimes people, the submittal is not complete. We need some additional items before we can start review, so that adds on to the time. And then depending on how good the plans are, they may go through a couple of reviews. So in the planning side on our items with House Bill 3167, we've developed a very strict process. We have if plans aren't complete, we kick them out. until they, just today, we've had some plans that have come in, and it's two different plats mixed together. And so that, we can't even start a review if it's not complete. But yeah, we get those comments turned around in 2 weeks. It usually, I would say we're moving faster than most cities are at this point. So, and for permitting, I will say we just hired a new building official, so we were a little slow in the last few months, but we're speeding back up. We've got a third-party inspection service, so they're doing all of our inspections for us. Shirley, our new building official, is overseeing and reviewing the inspection reports that come in. But that it gives us the ability to expand and contract. So in the summer months when we're going to be slammed and have 100 inspections to do that week, they can send multiple inspectors out versus if we just had one inspector that's just going to have to run around the whole city for a week. So does that kind of answer your question? I mean, our goal is a 2-week turnaround time for comments. That it doesn't tell me how many rounds of comments we may have to go through to get a complete set. So
Is the new online system,
and the new online system is helping that greatly. It's helping us keep track. We can see when people submit, and it keeps track of when it came in, so we know how long we've had it. And they know how long we've had it. So I think it's been helpful.
That's good. Good to hear.
Any other questions about the quarterly report?
That answer your questions, probably?
Yes, I think it's just something, I feel like we've raised the bar with everything that we've done. And some of that practices in the public with regular people, and it's just different than it was previously to get permits. And I feel like we've done a really good job here. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't thinking like so.
We really have done a good job.
Of course, I think we've done a great job, but that's.
I was thinking you need more staff.
That's right. That's right. Item 5C, update on recent city council actions regarding planning department items.
So the last item that we've taken, we did take the roadway agreement. I mentioned it, I think, at our last meeting that the colony had. It's a 3-party agreement with the city, the county, and the developer, that all the roads in that development will become public roads, that the county will take over and maintain upon completion, and that there's specific roadway connections that need to be made to the north and south to make sure they have additional ways in and out of that development. And that agreement also allows them to delay construction of those until it connects, or until the development is, I think, about 3/4 of the way built out. So, because it doesn't really help us to have a road that's not going anywhere, and so having that commitment that they'll build it when the development gets there, I think is just better for all of us. So, any other questions on that? And I do have a new person talking about additional staff to introduce, so.
Let's do that.
Nicole Peterson, she was supposed to start last week, so she started this week. She is our new planning tech, so she is to help keep us all on task, which she and our new permit tech, Deborah, definitely are doing, so.
Welcome. Thank you. Keep them on task. Okay, 5D, individual requests from planning and zoning commissioners of particular items to be listed on future agendas. Anybody have anything in particular we want to talk about next month? Doing a good job. Keep it up. Item 6.
Madam Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you.